Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere you've never been before, into the hushed shadows of an ancient Korean palace where moonlight glimmers across lacquered floors and night servants slip barefoot through corridors, careful not to wake the nobles. You're not here for politics or palace intrigue, though, at least not directly. No, tonight we're focused on something smaller, quieter, and much, much harder than it looks. You're kneeling on a cool floor, staring at a pillow. Not just any pillow, though. This one's carved from lacquered wood, inlaid with mother of pearl in delicate patterns, and it looks about as soft as a brick. And you're expected to sleep on it. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this without a crick in your neck and a minor existential crisis. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, leave a comment with your location and what time you're watching this. I love knowing where and when you all tune in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in the royal capital of Hanyang, modern-day Seoul. It's the Joseon dynasty, around the 15th century, and you've somehow landed an invite into the quarters of the royal family. Everything smells like pine wood and rice starch. The air is thick with formality. You walk past rows of low, lacquered furniture, past silk screens painted with cranes and sunrises, and into the sleeping quarters. The room is sparsely furnished, but not cold. Everything is deliberate. Even the floor, heated by an ondel system beneath your feet, feels like it's participating in some quiet ritual. And then you see it, the pillow. It's not some plush cloud inviting your head. It's small, rectangular, rigid, and shockingly beautiful. This isn't a piece of bedding. It's a statement. In the Joseon period, especially among the Yangban elite, pillows were not only practical tools for sleep, but declarations of moral standing, social class, and family lineage. The more rigid and uncomfortable the pillow, the more virtuous the sleeper was thought to be. Softness, after all, was indulgence, and indulgence was a fast track to moral decay, or at least some judgy glances at court. You glance at a wooden pillow nearby. It's carved in simple lines, stained dark with decades of polish. You're still lying there, head slightly tilted on this slab of artistic discomfort. And as your eyes adjust to the shadows in the royal chamber, your thoughts drift toward the shapes of the pillow itself. Not the materials, that's next, but the form, the silhouette, the quiet rigidity. Because it turns out, in the world of ancient Korean pillows, the shape of your headrest could say more about you than your family crest. You roll your neck slightly, catching sight of a nearby stand holding several pillows lined in neat rows, as if the royal household couldn't decide which form of neck torture they preferred. Some are angular and sharp, narrow bricks with harsh geometry, while others are gracefully curved like a miniature bridge or crescent moon. And no, these weren't aesthetic preferences. These were coded messages. A rectangular pillow? That likely signaled restraint, simplicity, and traditional masculine virtues, strength, integrity, maybe even political reliability. You'd find those on the sleeping mats of high-ranking ministers or scholarly officials who wouldn't be caught dead with a frilly cushion, and if they were caught, scandalous. A concave design, one that cradled the skull ever so slightly, that leaned more feminine. It suggested delicacy, harmony, and emotional poise. You imagine a court lady smoothing her hair and reclining on one of these, practicing the precise angle of her head to avoid creasing her intricate braid, while also not offending tradition by appearing too relaxed. And then there were the strange ones. Cylindrical pillows, rarely used but often commissioned for art's sake. Pillows shaped like stylized birds or with a gentle hump in the middle that supposedly aligned the spine. Scholars still argue whether these designs were medical, symbolic, or simply the results of a creative craftsman showing off. Of course, the royal family had their own variations, custom orders in a sense. Crown princes might receive headrests carved to resemble stylized lotus buds, symbols of purity and enlightenment. Younger royals, particularly those being groomed for religious or ceremonial roles, were given crescent-shaped pillows designed to reflect the shape of the waxing moon. A subtle reminder that they were still growing into their destiny. Historians still debate whether these shapes were ever standardized or followed regional trends. Some claim a uniform tradition, rooted in Confucian ideals and top-down etiquette, while others insist there was more personal flair, especially in the courts of later Joseon rulers who were known for indulging in customized aesthetics. One thing is clear: pillow shape wasn't random. It's like choosing your ringtone today, except people judged your soul by it. You sit upright now, cautiously, and reach for one of the bridge-shaped pillows. It's deceptively smooth. Crafted from paulownia wood, which is light yet strong, it fits neatly under your neck like a minimalist architectural marvel. And just for a second, you admit, maybe it does feel good, in a rigid, monk-in-training kind of way. Across the chamber, another pillow catches your eye. It's slightly asymmetrical, with raised edges and a lowered center. At first, you assume it's a factory mistake, until you remember there were no factories. This was handmade, intentional. Turns out, some pillows were carved to accommodate specific hairstyles. Yes, hairstyles. If you were a noblewoman in the Joseon court, you didn't just sleep, you slept around your hairdo. Some of these designs even included shallow notches at the ends, allowing long pins or side combs to rest without poking the sleeper or snapping under pressure. Others had curved channels to protect elaborately waxed braids. And you thought your memory foam was clever? That detail, the way function bent to form, or maybe the other way around, starts to make more sense the longer you're here.
you begin to understand that every detail in this chamber, from the raised wooden pillow stands to the alignment of the bedding mat,
You starting to adjust. Just a little. Your head doesn't protest quite as much against the firm support beneath it, and you begin to wonder, what were these things even made of? Because now that you've spent a moment appreciating the shape, it's time to get up close and personal with the materials, some of which were luxurious, others chilling, and a few downright odd. Right beside the pillow you've been using lies another, glazed, cool to the touch, and unmistakably porcelain. Yes, porcelain. That same elegant ceramic you'd expect to see in a vase, not supporting a royal cranium. Welcome to the Porcelain Pillow Club. In ancient Korea, especially during the Goryeo dynasty, which preceded the Joseon, ceramic pillows weren't just decorative, they were functional, especially in summer months. Glazed in pale celadons or ivory white with intricate underglaze designs, these cool-to-the-touch surfaces acted like an early form of air conditioning. You lean in, resting your cheek against it for a moment, and it's like pressing your face to the surface of a stone just after dusk. Here's the twist, though. Porcelain pillows were also used to preserve hairdos. The solid surface meant your elaborate hairstyle, painstakingly constructed over hours, wouldn't crumple into disarray by morning. Imagine trying to maintain your status and your curls in 90% humidity. Now imagine sleeping on porcelain to do it. Some pillows even had small holes or vents, believe it or not, to allow a little airflow underneath the head. Comfort was never the priority, but it wasn't completely ignored. Sort of like modern fashion, if you suffered just the right amount, it's probably worth it. Of course, porcelain wasn't the only choice. You move over to a small collection of more humble materials. There's bamboo, lightweight, slatted pillows for steamy nights that allowed breeze to pass through the gaps. You gently press a finger into the smooth bamboo strips. They shift slightly, creaking like the floorboards of a sleepy hanok. The construction feels airy, relaxed, almost subversive. Because not everyone had the luxury of porcelain. Among the lower nobility, or in merchant homes trying to mimic upper-class aesthetics without the bank account, pillows might be constructed from hardwoods like zelkova or pine, shaped by hand and polished to a sheen over many years. Others were carved from stone. Yes, actual stone. This wasn't unheard of in Buddhist circles, where asceticism was the ideal, and spiritual devotion often meant punishing the body into transcendence. Historians still argue whether these stone pillows were widely used or mostly ceremonial. Some suspect they were offered in temples as a form of sleep offering, a symbolic gesture rather than a nightly practice. Still, a few records hint at monks who swore by their rock-solid rest, claiming it kept the spine straight and the mind alert. You're not sure. You blink slowly, adjusting your posture again as your head nestles into the cool edge of the porcelain pillow. The faint outline of that white crane still hovers in the lantern's glow, and now your attention shifts to the brushstrokes dancing across its surface. These aren't random patterns, they're deliberate, carefully painted, etched, or embroidered symbols with entire philosophies behind them. Because tonight's pillow isn't just functional, it's also a canvas, and you, sleepy time traveler, are about to become a connoisseur of pillow iconography. Let's start with the obvious, dragons. You spot one curling along the edge of a jade-green ceramic headrest nearby, coiled in dramatic swirls, claws extended, but stylized, never monstrous. In Korean royal culture, dragons weren't fire-breathing villains. They were celestial beings, symbols of power, benevolence, and imperial grace. Only the king could use a 5-clawed dragon. 4-clawed, maybe a high minister or royal sibling. 3, decorative, harmless, peasant-safe. You scoot over to take a better look at that green pillow. The dragon's face is serene, not fierce. Its body winds around clouds, subtly alluding to heavenly protection and the idea that while the sleeper rests, the kingdom remains safe. Above it, a single lotus bloom. Now that's a big one. The lotus was purity incarnate, rising from muddy waters to bloom untarnished. You'd find lotus patterns especially in the queen's quarters, sometimes paired with cranes, which, surprise, also represented nobility and longevity. You're seeing a pattern here, right? But it goes deeper. On one smaller wooden pillow, you notice a peony, large, ornate, and painted in a heavy style that almost looks embossed. Peonies were for beauty, prosperity, and feminine virtue. It's rumored that certain court ladies even requested peony designs on their pillows in hopes of attracting royal favor or encouraging fertility. Did it work? Hard to say. Historians still argue whether these symbols were believed to have genuine magical influence or were simply pretty traditions people clung to for comfort. Now and then, you'll spot animals: tigers for bravery, turtles for long life and steady wisdom, and magpies, cheeky little birds believed to bring good news. One particularly delicate pillow displays two magpies facing each other, beaks tilted upward, holding a single strand of thread between them. You pause. It's a symbol for reunion, probably a gift between lovers or a couple long separated by palace protocol. There were also auspicious Chinese characters, often embedded into the pillow's artwork: Book for good fortune, Su for longevity, He for joy. These characters weren't just for decor, they were talismans woven into daily life. By placing them beneath your head, the thinking went, you absorbed their influence as you slept, kind of like subliminal messaging, only with ink and lacquer. Some pillows went further still.
The pillow you've rested on, the one with phoenixes stitched in shimmering gold, leaves a light imprint on your cheek. Not a bruise, but a reminder of station, of softness, of the power a queen carried, even in sleep. Because now we step deeper into the queen's chamber. It's quieter here, not just out of respect, but because everything moves differently, slower, smoother. Even the servants' footsteps barely register on the heated floor, and the lanterns glow a little softer, like they too understand their place in the presence of royalty. Here, the pillows aren't just stiffer versions of art pieces, they're tools of influence, of message, of carefully measured elegance. You sink into a silken floor mat, low and plush, beside a line of neatly arranged cushions. No two are alike, but all shimmer with the same quiet threat. You are in the queen's space now. Sit properly. One pillow is wrapped in deep blue silk embroidered with chrysanthemum blooms, symbols of resilience and clarity. Another, in fiery red, features a phoenix mid-flight, stitched in metallic threads so fine they seem to flutter when you exhale. But it's the stitching itself that pulls you closer. The queen's pillowcases, rotated seasonally, were hand-sewn by the court's most skilled seamstresses, a guild of women whose entire job was to uphold royal aesthetics in fabric. And you thought picking a throw pillow for your couch was hard. Some of these pillowcases weren't even used, they were displayed, meant for ceremonial days, imperial birthdays, or significant ancestral rites. A new design might be commissioned to reflect recent victories, spiritual alignment, or political alliances. Soft diplomacy, stitched in gold. You run your fingers over one case edged in jade-colored trim. The threading is tight, consistent, invisible from the reverse. The queen would have expected no less. Imperfection, like a misaligned symbol or loose knot, wasn't just sloppy. It could be interpreted as an omen, a sign that something beneath the palace surface was coming undone. It wasn't only about beauty. These pillows were messages for those who entered her room, silent declarations of status, philosophy, and unspoken warning. Of course, you couldn't just copy her designs. The Queen's iconography was strictly protected. A court lady caught using phoenix motifs on her personal garments, or heaven forbid her own pillow, might face demotion or reassignment. One record tells of a seamstress exiled from the inner court for stitching an imperial
You roll slowly onto your side, face brushing against silk embroidered with gold thread, and you're struck by a quiet truth. Some of these pillows weren't made for the living. Not really. Because now we enter stranger space, a colder one, the realm of eternal sleep. You're still inside the palace, but everything's different. Dimmer, the floors are colder, the windows sealed. You walk barefoot past a partition, and suddenly the atmosphere shifts from warm domesticity to ceremonial hush. This is where the objects of the dead were kept, or at least where replicas of them were prepared. And among them, pillows. Only these pillows weren't meant to soften dreams. They were meant to guide souls. Burial pillows, especially among the Joseon elite, were often made from stone, heavy wood, or porcelain, meant not for comfort, but permanence. These headrests were often placed inside burial chambers alongside lacquered chests, silk garments, and miniature replicas of everyday items. You crouch beside one, smooth, pale celadon, cool to the touch even in this sealed chamber, and realize it might have held a royal skull for centuries. Some burial pillows were carved with lotus flowers or cranes like their living counterparts, but others featured more esoteric symbols, the taiguk, representing cosmic balance, or swirling cloud motifs meant to lift the soul upward. Occasionally, they bore inscriptions, names, posthumous titles, or poetic lines hinting at the deceased's virtues. One pillow here is carved from dark stone, speckled with iron deposits that shimmer faintly under lantern light. The sides are inscribed with the phrase, "To rest with peace and rise with grace." Beneath it, tiny figures, barely noticeable, march along a cloud-carpeted pathway. You realize they represent ancestors waiting to greet the sleeper beyond death. Historians still debate whether these pillows were ever actually used by the deceased in life, then repurposed in death, or if they were made exclusively for burial. Some speculate they were symbolic stand-ins, uncomfortable by design, to discourage clinging to the earthly body. Others believe families replicated their loved one's actual sleeping arrangement right down to the stitching. You reach into a low lacquered drawer and find something even more curious. Tiny stone pillows, doll-sized. These were placed inside children's burial tombs, often paired with miniature shoes, bowls, and scrolls. One is shaped like a tiny tiger, complete with carved whiskers and a little growl. It's not scary, it's comforting. A spiritual guardian for a young soul on its journey. And then there are the Let's pull back from tombs and solemn silence. You're still sleepy, sure, but not quite ready to drift into the afterlife just yet. So let's return to life. Messy, noisy, adorable life. Specifically, the tiniest members of the royal household. Because now you're tiptoeing into the world of child pillows with tails. Yes, tails. As you pass through a smaller chamber tucked near the women's quarters, you hear it. Soft giggling, the shuffle of little feet. This is where the royal children once slept, and their pillows, unlike anything else in the palace. Instead of rigid lacquered blocks or ominous porcelain slabs, these headrests are playful, whimsical, shaped like animals, tigers, turtles, rabbits, even stylized dragons with embroidered whiskers and beady button eyes. One rests at your feet now, tiger-striped with tiny felt ears and a tail that curls at the tip like a sleepy question mark. Don't be fooled by the cuteness, though.
These weren't toys. They were protective charms. Folk belief in Joseon, Korea held that spirits were especially attracted to children. Curious, mischievous, sometimes dangerous spirits. So pillows shaped like fierce animals, especially tigers, served as symbolic guardians. You might not be able to fight off a ghost in your sleep, but your pillow could do it for you. You crouch beside one shaped like a turtle, stitched in sea green silk, with small decorative scales etched in thread along its shell. Turtles meant long life and quiet wisdom, both things parents wanted their children to grow into. This one's head pokes out in a mischievous curve, like it's checking whether you're behaving yourself. And these pillows didn't just look cute, they were interactive. Many had little bells sewn inside, or crinkly paper bits tucked between fabric layers so they'd rattle softly when touched. Some had detachable tails stuffed with herbs, mugwort, chrysanthemum, or sandalwood, meant to calm a restless child or ward off bad dreams, like an ancient version of aromatherapy. You hold one such tail close to your nose. The scent is faint now, more memory than aroma, but still there, a soft, earthy reassurance. It's easy to imagine a small prince curled against your side, fast asleep. His tiger stares outward with stitched ferocity. Both dream a little safer. You imagine a tiny crown prince curled against your side, fast asleep. His tiger stares outward with stitched ferocity. You both dream a little safer.
You sit up, the tiger pillow reluctantly letting go of your dreams, and move deeper into the palace. There's a different hush in this room. Not the echo of the dead, not the softness of children, but something more restrained, controlled, official. This is where formality ruled, and so did posture. Tonight, you're meeting the stiffest pillows in Korea, Confucian headrests for upright sleep. Yes, upright, sort of. You take your place on a woven mat inside a scholar's study. Low ceiling, sliding paper doors, the scent of ink still lingering in the air. You lower yourself slowly, but not completely. Your knees bend under you, your spine straightens, and instead of a soft cushion, your head rests on a narrow raised pillow made of carved wood. No fluff, no give, just balance. Confucian ideals shaped nearly every aspect of Korean elite life during the Joseon period, including sleep. And sleeping posture wasn't just personal, it was political. Upright, orderly rest meant you were in harmony with nature, with duty, with propriety. The soft squish of indulgence, that was for the weak-willed. So many noblemen, especially scholars and court officials, used structured headrests, elevated blocks of wood, lacquered bamboo, or clay, designed to keep your head aligned with your spine. Too low, and you're slouching. Too soft, and you might oversleep. Too horizontal, and you could fall into moral decay. No pressure. You test one now. It's made of polished paulownia wood, light, fragrant, resistant to insects, surprisingly cool against your neck. It even has carved vents on the sides to allow airflow during summer. Functional, yes. Relaxing? Not exactly. But the design insists on integrity. Your shoulders roll back, whether you like it or not. And here's the quirky part. These pillows weren't only about sleep. They doubled as meditation tools. You were expected to lie still, breathe slowly, and reflect on your day's conduct. This was your Confucian cool-down. Did you speak kindly to your elders? Perform your calligraphy with care? Treat your inferiors without arrogance? If not, the pillow would know. Historians still argue whether these upright headrests genuinely improved posture or just caused widespread neck cramps. Some records hint at long-term benefits for the spine.
Others include cheeky complaints from court officials grumbling about.
You rise slowly from the confusion headrest, vertebrae slightly straighter, moral compass lightly adjusted, and wander toward a quieter, more personal chamber. There's a different energy here, not public, not performative. This is the domain of morning pillows and sleep in times of grief. Your feet sink into the straw mats as you enter a small room draped with plain cloth hangings. No elaborate embroidery, no flashy lacquer work, just subtle grays, whites, and soft blues. You breathe in, and the air feels denser, like even time walks slower here. Mourning in Joseon, Korea followed strict codes, some might say merciless ones. When a royal family member died, their immediate kin entered a period of public and private grief marked by symbolic gestures and ceremonial restraint. But even grief needed to sleep, and sleep during mourning had its own rules. One corner of the room holds a modest wooden platform, low to the ground. Upon it lies a pillow wrapped in white hemp cloth, stuffed not with cotton or rice husk, but with unbleached flax fibers. Soft enough to cradle, coarse enough to remind. This was a songju pillow, used by those observing formal mourning periods, especially for a parent or spouse. Unlike the decorative animal pillows or the moralist's head blocks, these mourning pillows were meant to be emotionally neutral. Their role was not to comfort, but to support quiet endurance. You rest your head against one now. It doesn't resist, but it doesn't yield either. It's the kind of pillow that just lets you be sad. Here's the strange part. Some of these pillows were designed to feel slightly cold. Silk was swapped out for hemp, lacquer was avoided, and ceramic versions were sometimes glazed in pale celadon to give off a cooling sensation against the skin. The belief was that warmth invited emotional indulgence. Coolness, by contrast, helped keep feelings from overtaking duty. It's a design philosophy you don't see much in modern memory foam. But of course, grief doesn't care about etiquette, and neither did some pillow makers. One rare find from a 17th century noblewoman's estate reveals a mourning pillow embroidered on the inside, the side facing the bed frame, with hidden phrases. "Come back in dreams. Your scent is still here." You lie back for a moment, your fingers trailing the edge of the mourning pillow, then move slowly toward another part of the palace, one that hums faintly with the energy of those not bound by grief, duty, or even much decorum. This is the hidden wing of the royal residence, the one meant for whispers, laughter behind screens, and subtle perfumes. You've arrived in the world of concubines, court ladies, and their intimate sleeping quarters. This room is smaller, but more elaborate, not in the ostentatious, dulled leaf kind of way, but in texture, layering, and secret luxury. Here, sleep was not only a necessity, it was a performance, an escape, and sometimes a strategy. The pillows lining the bedding are different, not stiff, not solemn. Some are plush and embroidered with soft florals or stylized phoenixes. Others are cylindrical, bolsters essentially, wrapped in rich, warm-toned silks. One is a long crescent shape, designed to cradle both your head and neck at once, as if sleep were being offered as a carefully curated gift. These were the pillows of women who lived lives wrapped in protocol, yet hemmed with unpredictability. A court lady could be awakened in the middle of the night and summoned, or left undisturbed for months. So their pillows weren't just for comfort, they were for readiness. Many had hidden fasteners, allowing the cases to be removed and replaced in minutes. Always clean, always elegant, always prepared. You lie back against one now,
a delicate lavender-colored crescent with stitched cloud motifs. There's something indulgent about it, yes, but there's also a quiet vigilance. Like the pillow is saying, rest for now, but don't unpack too much. Historians still argue whether the women of the inner court had real agency over their sleeping spaces, or whether their seemingly personal touches were dictated by rank and protocol. Some records suggest senior concubines had the right to choose their pillow type. Others claim the choices were made for them, down to the thread color. But even within those boundaries, creativity bloomed. One pillow here is shaped like a lotus petal, symbol of purity, yes, but also a bold wink at sensuality. Another has a small patch sewn into its underside. You lift the flap. Inside is a dried sachet of makhyang, a musky, sandalwood-like fragrance thought to relax the nerves and, conveniently, promote pleasing dreams. Dream enhancement was a quiet obsession in these quarters. Not all dreams were for resting. Some concubines had personalized pillows given to them as gifts by the king or a favored eunuch. These would sometimes...
You stir gently, the silk of the crescent pillow still clinging faintly to your cheek, and slip out into a corridor painted with early morning hush. Where you're headed now is far from any royal bedchamber. You're going to the scholars' quarters, tucked behind the palace libraries and gardens, where the only extravagance is a well-oiled inkstone. This is where scribes, tutors, Confucian advisors, and resident poets bedded down for the night, usually after long days of drafting edicts or translating ancient Chinese texts that, let's be honest, were already confusing the moment they were written. Their pillows? Practical, earnest, very, very rectangular. You enter a sparse room that smells faintly of pine ink and old paper. The floors creak like they're remembering debates long settled. The bedding is simple but clean, and on each scholar's mat rests a small rectangular wooden headrest, lacquered just enough to resist splinters. Not exactly spa-grade comfort. The prevailing belief was that soft pillows made the mind dull, that to sleep soundly, the head must remain slightly elevated and aligned. Some scholars even trained themselves to sleep without turning, so their ideas wouldn't scatter in the night. You give one of these headrests a cautious test. Your skull immediately files a complaint. But that's not all. Some headrests had tiny insets built into their base, secret compartments for scrolls or messages. One artifact from the 15th century contained a folded note that read, "If I do not awake, burn the second draft." Relatable. Others hid worry stones or prayer beads so the scholar could fidget silently while reflecting before bed. Multitasking before smartphones. Historians still argue whether these compartments were for practicality or paranoia. Were they designed for late-night study, or were they just pillow safes for storing secret critiques of the court? Maybe both. On the underside of one headrest, you find a carved inscription. Even in sleep, hold your argument. Clearly, some men took their footnotes to bed. You settle in. No cushion, no plush anything. Just polished wood and your thoughts. But oddly, it starts to make sense. In this world, sleep wasn't escape. It was an extension of study. A chance to review logic puzzles, compose imaginary verses, or debate Mencius in your dreams. The wooden headrest has not been kind to your neck, but your spirit feels oddly sharpened, like you've just passed an exam in sleep deprivation theory. You stretch, rotate your shoulder once, and step into softer light. You're moving on now to a quieter, but just as symbolic, corner of the ancient palace, the children's quarters. This room is smaller, warmer, and smells faintly of roasted chestnuts and paper lantern smoke. The ceilings are low,
and every surface has the scuffed texture of use. Here, nestled under low eaves and latticed windows, the youngest members of the royal family once drifted off, surrounded by night guardians, whispered folk tales, and pillows that were part comfort, part charm against chaos. You crouch beside one of the mats. The pillow is rounded, like a dumpling, flattened at the edges, stuffed with soft cotton and dried mugwort. Its case is patterned with cranes and tigers, embroidered in colors chosen not for elegance, but for power. Red to ward off evil dreams, yellow for nobility, green for long life. This isn't just a pillow, it's protection. You press your cheek to the fabric. It's gentle, worn soft, from decades of small hands and softer dreams. A distant lullaby seems to hum from the walls themselves, the melody catching between the wood panels like old breath. Pillows for children were more than smaller versions of adult ones. They were often shaped with intention. Round to symbolize fullness, slightly tilted to help developing spines, and sometimes even with protective amulets sewn inside. These charms could be jade pieces, silver coins, or even bits of inked paper with Buddhist or shamanic blessings scrawled in delicate brushstrokes. One example, found in a 17th century tomb, bore a stitched phrase across the hem: "Sleep long, little moon." You smile. Sleep long indeed. Historians still argue whether these pillows were crafted more for spiritual protection or physiological function. Did the herbs inside, the mugwort, the ginger root, the dried chrysanthemum petals, actually calm the child, or were they there to calm the parents? Likely both. You notice another one, a small square pillow with a hidden rattle sewn into its middle. Clever. The idea wasn't just to comfort the baby. It was to give the parents a low-stakes sound cue. If the rattle stopped jingling, the child had probably shifted too far from the bedding. A sort of ancient plush baby monitor. Then there's the royal birthday pillow, a tradition you've likely never heard of. On a prince or princess,
The lullaby lingers in your ears like the final twirl of incense smoke. You sit up slowly, brushing imaginary petals from your lap, and take a quiet step out of the children's quarters. What waits ahead is neither plush nor playful. It's the path of passing. Yes, tonight, even in this sleepy little journey, you'll pass through the halls of mourning. Don't worry though, no jump scares here. Just another curious stop in the long, winding story of ancient Korean pillow culture, death pillows. You enter a ceremonial chamber where the air is thinner, heavier somehow, like it remembers too much. The floorboards are glossy with wear. Soft white cloths cover low platforms, and incense coils hang from the beams above like sleepy spirals. At the center of one platform sits a pillow, not for rest, but for reverence. This pillow is unlike the others you've met. It's simple but resolute, usually made of dense wood, sometimes even stone. Not necessarily to cradle a living head, but to honor a spirit. These were used in funeral rites, placed beneath the head of the deceased, often with tokens of their social rank, profession, or symbolic aspirations carved into the sides. You lean in closer. One such pillow bears the faint relief of a plum blossom, the Korean symbol for endurance through hardship. Another, a coiled dragon, suggesting a scholar or official of high standing. Sometimes the carvings were purely poetic. A wave motif for someone whose life was fluid and far-reaching, or a mountain ridge for someone unshakable in resolve.
And yes, before you ask, the dead did get headrests. It's not just a modern aesthetic. Korean ancestral beliefs held that the body remained important even in death. Lying someone down with intention, with dignity, was a way to ensure their passage into the afterlife wasn't turbulent. Historians still argue whether these pillows were crafted specifically for each funeral, or if families reused them across generations, much like altars or family heirlooms. Some temples kept ceremonial death pillows made of jade, reserved for monks or noblemen, while others used glazed ceramic ones, etched with lotus petals or Buddhist scripture. One such pillow is said to contain a hidden compartment. No, not for secrets, but for a single handwritten letter from the deceased's family, slipped inside before burial. The text? Unknown. The pillow has never been opened. Scholars call it,
You emerge into a garden. No, not the pristine courtyards from before with raked pebbles and moon bridges. This space is softer, overgrown in that romantic way, where ivy doesn't seem invasive, just ambitious. Crickets trill somewhere near your feet. The scent of pine lingers in the damp air. This is where the palace servants once slept, tucked beneath overhanging roofs in narrow rooms lined like book spines against the outer wall. They rested not as royals, but as caretakers. And here, too, the pillow had its role to play. You slide open a thin door and step inside a servant's sleeping chamber. The mat is simple, the blanket is coarse, but the pillow? Surprisingly thoughtful. You lean down and press your palm against the shape. It's firm, rectangular, and made of straw tightly wrapped in cloth. No dragons, no cranes, no poems stitched in silk, but it holds its own kind of dignity. These pillows weren't just practical, they were customized for utility. Some had hidden compartments to store small personal items, a comb, a paper charm, a few coins. Others were woven from rice straw mixed with pine needles, not for luxury, but for resilience against insects and mildew. Imagine finishing a 14-hour day, hauling water, scrubbing lacquered floors, preparing ceremonial trays, and then lying down on a pillow that smells faintly of pine forest. Not bad. You probably wouldn't complain. Historians still argue whether these servant pillows were standardized by the court or crafted individually at home. Some believe palace seamstresses stitched them during slow seasons. Others point to small markings, a family seal here, a hidden motif there, suggesting servants brought their own, modified for comfort, and a whisper of identity. That small motif becomes your focus now. It's barely there, just a stitched shape, possibly a gourd or a bean or a seed pod, a symbol of nourishment, of growth, a private joke. You'll never know, but it mattered to someone. You lie down briefly, the pillow doesn't give, it resists, but there's something grounding about it. It reminds you of the kind of sleep that comes not from boredom or excess, but from work, honest, aching, good work. And let's not forget night duties. Not all servants got to sleep through the night. Some kept watch in outer halls, or waited silently outside royal chambers in case a prince needed warm tea at midnight, or a queen wanted to hear rain described to her poetically. Yes, that really happened. One concubine was reportedly soothed to sleep by having rain described as falling silk unraveled by the sky. In those late hours, miniature pillows, travel-sized if you will, were used, tucked under.
You've walked through palaces, tombs, gardens, and workrooms. But now you arrive in the quietest space of all. Not a place, really, more like a presence. The softest part of the story, where threads pull together, voices hush, and the world narrows to a single slow breath. This is the pillow as portal. The last stop isn't about who used the pillow,
but why they believed it mattered. You step into a dim corner room of the palace, not marked on maps, barely more than an alcove, but it hums, with meaning, with metaphor. Here, among aged scrolls and stacks of ritual objects, the philosophy of sleep itself lived. You take a seat beside an old wooden chest. Its top creaks open, revealing what looks like an ordinary pillow. Simple cloth, dull colors, no dragons, no immortality birds, not even a foxtail. But this was not for heads, it was for meditation. A pillow meant to be stared at, considered, sometimes placed on a table while one drank tea alone. The Confucian elite of Joseon, Korea believed the objects around you shaped your inner quiet. Pillows weren't just tools, they were reminders to lie still, to think slowly, to dream with care. One record from a royal scholar's journal describes such a pillow as a silent mirror, a place where thoughts gathered and softened before bed. The scholar admitted he never slept on it, just kept it by the window to remind himself that rest was a kind of wisdom too. Another fascinating find? A pillow with no padding at all, just an embroidered shell stitched shut. It was never meant to be used. It was symbolic, placed in a room during illness or recovery, a way to say, rest is invited here. Historians still argue whether this class of contemplation pillows began as actual sleeping aids or emerged entirely from metaphysical practice. What's certain is they reveal a cultural thread. Sleep wasn't shameful, it was sacred. You weren't losing time, you were recalibrating your soul. In some circles, special pillows were kept seasonally. Spring brought green-dyed pillowcases symbolizing renewal. Autumn meant muted browns and ochres embroidered with falling leaves. One particularly poetic diary entry says, "I matched my pillow to the moon." Another claimed, "I change mine with my regrets." You can't help but smile. Imagine doing that today. "Oh, I got dumped. Time for the lavender case with stitched rain." Even the materials had meaning. Mugwort for purification, bamboo shavings for clarity, buckwheat for memory. There were recorded cases of